Conversation on Lagos television. At this moment on the show, we'll be shifting our attention away from football. Now we're focusing on something that is trending for weeks in the country, and that's the issue of the new national minimum wage. You will recall last week that the Nigerian Governors Forum did say that they cannot afford to pay the sum of 60,000 naira. Of course, the tripartite committee was set up by the federal government on the 30th of January 2024, and up until now, nothing concrete has been achieved by that committee. We have joining us on the program this morning, John Dari Oloyede, lawyer and public affairs analyst, and we'll be looking at the minimum wage, the federal government versus organized labor. It's a pleasure to have you on the program this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, I did say during my introduction that a tripartite committee was set up and was inaugurated by the Vice President on the 30th of January. We have members of the Governors Forum, organized private sector, and of course members of Labour were also represented, as well as the Minister of Labour. But up until now, we have not seen anything concrete. The federal government started adding 33,000 naira, 2,000 naira. And you know, at some point, it was becoming embarrassing, and people did not really know whether the federal government is really sincere about actually paying a living wage, a poverty wage, or a minimum wage. What exactly is your own perception about all of these dramas that we're witnessing? And do not forget that midnight today, the 5-day grace period given by Labour is going to expire.
Oh, okay, thank you. Well, I'll start from the grace period expiring. At least we have the good news, or depending on which side of the divide you are on, that the Labour Union leader, Ajaero, says, well, strike is not likely to continue.
Yeah.
So that's some news. It may be good or bad depending on where you are at the moment. Now, my perspective is this. You see, for as long as we continue to bog ourselves down with this federal structure that is not really working, we're not going to solve problems. I mean, the topic is federal government and organized labor. Why should it be federal government and organized labor? What we have seen is the Governors Forum, governors of different states saying, look, I can afford this, we can afford that. The figures are not the same. Why do we continue negotiating from the angle of a federal government when the state governments, I mean, Rivers State will pay more than what Gombe State will pay. Lagos State has a very deep pocket. Lagos State will probably be able to afford more in terms of wage bill.
Isn't that a constitutional matter?
No, that's the point. For as long as everything goes on, everything begins and ends at Abuja, Nigeria is going to continue having problems. We are not the same. We are not the same. The earning power, the wage bills are different. You cannot compare the total number of workers that Lagos employs with what Ogun State has. So how do you want to negotiate at the federal level and determine that there should be the same figure? It doesn't make sense. That's the reason why everybody wants to go to Abuja to discuss. Why can't the governor of Lagos State sit down with it, or with his own workers, the labor leaders in Lagos State, and say, look, my teachers, I can pay this. I mean, like the United States of America, do the states pay the same thing? People actually move from one state to the other because of differences in wages and all that. You decide that, okay, for the sake of my children, the school fees I have to pay is less here. And then you move, even when you are not earning the same thing. So when you say federal government and organized labor, the problem with this country, I take exception to the discussion so far, and my perspective is it should not be that way. Let the states negotiate. Let the labor unions in the states negotiate. Lagos State may be able to afford more than Ogun State. You can't force it down their throats. The 30 or 33,000 naira minimum wage. Some states have not started paying them. Yeah. Meanwhile, those states have started paying 70,000, maybe for political reasons.
I was about to go there.
Now, it's paying. Maybe some people will pay back later. They are going to pay back later after this governor leaves. But the important thing here is you cannot continue. The federal government is carrying too much burden. It should be regulatory.
It ends more as well.
Oh, well, when you
look at the sharing formula.
Now, that is relative too. It ends more. Everybody is attracted to the center. My perspective is this. that what you call, there's a case at the Supreme Court right now where the federal attorney general has taken all the other governors to court for the Supreme Court to determine the independence of local governments and all those things. Now, even looking at it from that angle again. Now, I remember when the current president, was the governor of Lagos State, and President Obasanjo was the president. I mean, they fought themselves to a standstill up to Supreme Court level about how the manner in which local government funds are actually disbursed. It was a major, decision of the Supreme Court. Now, the tides have turned, and now the former governor is now the president, and is now taking the governors to court to say, oh, you have to allow money to trickle down to the local governments. Now, the beginning of this problem, the imbroglio we have now, was Lagos State. The truth must be told. At that point in time, Obasanjo refused to release monies meant for local government to the state because he felt the state was keeping all this money and then giving them peanuts. And now, this federal government is saying, no, that should not happen. The independence of the judiciary, independence of the local government. You see, the problem is everything is over-concentrated at the center, and we cannot...
Sir, let's bring this home.
Yeah.
One good thing I like about when you were introduced is that you are a lawyer.
Yes, I am.
A lawyer follows a laid-down principle,
Exactly.
especially the Constitution, which is the ground norm.
Yes.
And here is a situation where you can't do anything. According to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the Tripartite Committee, as it stands, will negotiate what everybody will get. Until the Constitution is changed, maybe then, or perhaps we find a political solution to it. But as it stands, federal government, state government, private sector, organized private sector will send representatives with those and labor. They will sit down how things will go, and that has been binding. And every 5 years, you do that again. Perhaps your idea will work if the National Assembly can bring that on board and say, but at the moment, what do you see with governors saying, we know where the shoe pinches, we can't afford this? Labour is insisting on, in fact, the assistant NLC or the vice president of the NLC said this is a poverty wage. But here we have the reality of 250 at that last time I checked, and 62,000 before Mr. President. Where would we find like a meeting point here?
Now, the meeting point, you see, you raised the issue of constitutionality, that I'm a lawyer.
Yes.
And so looking at it legally and all that, we operate a structure, and that's a structure that is fixed within the constitutional framework. Now, you will not forget that within this same structure, there have been issues about elections. Why is it that matters relating to the political elites, when they have to amend the constitution about elections,
It's fast.
what we can do is always fast. When we wanted to change the national anthem, it was fast. They are now talking about rotational presidency.
It's not going to be that fast.
No. It may not be that fast. Regionalism, rotational, it won't be that fast because a particular region does not like it. That's why it won't be fast. There are conditions instilled embedded in the Constitution that stipulate how each state of the federation must accept certain things. But when they want to amend matters within the Constitution relating to election, they don't call it amendment. They call it alteration. You understand? Everything relating to our elections, we've come this far because of alterations, alteration number 1, alteration 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If they can use such methods to change matters relating to them. Speed. Why can't they begin to look at it this way? Look, federal government cannot legislate over everything. There is also the organized private sector. There is public sector. Now, as an employee of labor, you cannot begin, you can say, okay, the minimum wage per hour that anybody should earn, like they do in the UK and US.
Yeah.
When you are going in for a job, they will tell you this is the minimum you can get, because government has said based on economic indices, nobody can survive below this level. So what they are talking about is not a living wage. I won't also call it a poverty wage. You see, it is a minimum wage, below which an average human being cannot survive.
Okay. All right. But when you look at what the tripartite committee is proposing, the sum of 62,000 naira and the economic realities of today, would that not translate to, what did we call it, poverty wage?
Well,
Because I'm looking at a husband, a wife, and their 2 children.
Yeah.
They will pay rent, they will pay school fees, they will buy things to survive, food items, and so on and so forth. 62,000. How would anybody reasonable be able to survive?
you called it a suggestion.
Okay.
What we have on the
It's a
table
proposal.
from both sides, it does not make sense for no reasonable human being, given what we have on the table at the moment in this country, will suggest that 62,000 will feed a family of 4, father, mother, and 2 children in a month. It is not possible. There was something, the video that trended, this woman in hijab, and she broke it down. That is
Aisha.
I can't remember the name, but she's always on the internet. Now she broke it down. I never went that far, but listening to her, that was a reasonable breakdown, which is within the week, if you have to take gari and granite, you have to take, I mean, the worst of the worst kind of food for a father, a mother, and 2 or 3 children. There is no way you can spend less than maybe 8 to 10,000. I mean, on a day, in every day. Now, break 62,000 into say 30 days. We have to eat every day. It still doesn't go. And she was suggesting that did not include paying for accommodation. It didn't include paying for medicals. So at 62,000 is a no-no. No reasonable person can support that. At maybe 120,000, and then when you now talk about it in terms of dollars, how much is 62,000? It's not up to $50 in a month. How can human beings? And then you see, the unkindest cut of all for me is the people who are supposed to talk about this, deliberate on it, amend the laws and everything. They have never suggested that, oh, let us also tighten our belt. The truth must be told. It's a give and take. If people have voted for you, you don't go in there and begin to flaunt wealth.
Which is what they're doing.
You don't tell me you are rebuilding or you are completing the house of the vice president with 21 billion naira. And you say you cannot. Now, also, the reason why I said states and federal should be different. The number of people in labor at federal level, you can't compare it to labor at state level.
Sure.
So you have to look at it in terms of how much does federal government really take home every month, every year. How many people work for federal government? Now, look at our senators and all those people. You want to tell me that you are taking care of, they say Remedy Mobilization and Fiscal Committee. We have a committee that prescribes what a senator, a member of House of Reps should get, judges should get. And then you factor in wardrobe allowance, security allowance, hardship allowance, sleeping allowance, waking allowance, furniture allowance, and newspaper allowance. Yeah, you factor all that in. Do they factor those in for the people who work for government? Why are they not entitled to it? The basic pay of most people, even in a state as big as Lagos State, I mean, is nothing to write home about, given the bigness of this state. I'm sorry I'm saying this, but that is the truth. So you have to look, what is good for, like Chief Zebudaya used to say, what are good for the Guzar are good for the Ganda. You know, pardon my English. If you say revenue mobilization mobilizes funds for senators and House of Reps members, and they factor in everything, every head of living, then you factor it in for the people too. Even if there won't be 2,500 as opposed to 800,000 housing, let the common man also have it. And then you will see that they can never arrive at 62,000. Or the impossible. Sorry, I had to bring it.
No. But seriously speaking, who doesn't get the message or who hasn't gotten the memo?
The leadership.
Because on one hand, they'll say, look, we have other things to attend to. It's not about paying overheads of salaries. We have to capital expenditure. We have to roads, building, health, all this infrastructure, and all that. That is the argument. I've never seen any government that hasn't thrown that on the table. Like, look, we have all this to deal with and other exigencies, but never have they talked about the fact that, look, what you have earned, what you are personally earning, in fact, from even your Esther codes, is way, way more than, and your retinue of aids hasn't whittled down or hasn't been reduced all this while. So who hasn't gotten the memo that, look, the reality on ground, because having up close as a journalist, up close with politicians, they live in a different world than from the people, because as soon as you get there, even if you are with the people before, but as soon as you get into that office, it's a different ball game, because that life is sweet, you know. No, it's very sweet, because you see them before and you see them now. After. Even your local government chairman, you know that something has really changed.
Even councillors.
Something has really changed, because he speaks better now. And he's more confident.
Chobia?
Yes, Owotide.
And the wardrobe.
Yes, it's working. So who hasn't gotten the memo that, look, these people are angry, and because they're hungry.
The leadership, they haven't got the message. That's why one of the excuses that our leaders give, especially the assemblymen, is, all these monies you see that we get, it's for, we have to take our constituency projects. Our people come to us for help. Those are informal things. In the first instance, constitutionally, lawmakers should not execute projects. It's only in Nigeria that you have a situation where you will say, because a person is a lawmaker, some funds are allocated yearly for him to execute projects in his constituency. Now, that is wrong. Executive to execute, legislature to make laws, and the judiciary to interpret laws. It's clearly spelled out in the Constitution. The reason why we have a situation where people can begin to say, you see all this money, how much do I spend? We see it in your skin color, the glow. We see it in what you wear. We see people who were elected in the interior, the local areas, they stop living there. They move to the eyebrow areas. We see all that. The important thing here is they don't get the message. And you see, the problem, I'm a student of history too, and every time I look at the Nigerian situation, I can't but always remember the 1789 revolution, the French Revolution. Things like this premeditated it. It's going to be a spark. It may be a conductor just fighting with a passenger one day, and there will be a conflagration. It's better they get the message now. And let all of us, let them say, okay, let that revenue mobilization people, the committee, all these tripartite committee, they are ad hoc committees. Committees that have no constitutional basis. When there is trouble, they quickly set up a committee. And there is this saying that whenever government sets up a committee to discuss a problem, it is for the purpose of sweeping the problem under the carpet. Do you understand? There are a lot of times, a lot of things. Once we shout, it's like they are like distractions. They give us distractions to keep us busy for a time. And then another thing comes up, then they distract us again. Now we're talking about money, living wage. How do people survive? You suddenly come and say, the rotational presidency. Then let's create one more state for the East. Because they know the Eastern people, they need to bring them into the fold so that all those of them who are in power, they can always speak with one voice. It's not about Labour and federal government. It's about the Nigerian people and the Nigerian leadership. Let the truth be told.
Okay, is it that they are not getting the message or they have lost their conscience? Because they go to the market as well, they buy food items, even if some of their items are shipped into the country. Why are they not concerned about the plight of the people? And when you look at Mr. President before he was elected, he promised a living wage.
Yeah.
Now Labour is expecting him to speak up. Latest midnight today. What do you think we should expect from Mr. President in such a way that it will not be at loggerheads with the governors?
I'm not counsel for Mr. President. And one thing I will say is, there is nothing that is happening that Mr. President did not say he would do. Tax will go up. He's going to expand the tax net. He's going to do all this. He's going to, remove the hands of federal government from all these things that they are being saddled with and all that. He has said a lot of things. He removed subsidy and all that. I don't think, for me as a person, I may not be in his camp, but I like a man who says, I will do this, and he does it. He doesn't care whose ox is God. But the problem for me is, why should the federal government continue to take on responsibilities that is not its own? That's why the governors keep hiding under the federal government every time. Are the governors discharging their obligations to the people as per getting elected into office? Are the local government chairmen, are they doing enough in terms of their obligations to the people? That is where the problem is. We keep on, like today now, Mr. President is expected to speak about labor all over Nigeria. Is he the employer of all labor in Nigeria? No. There are private sector people who can, yes, there are some people in the private sector, they can't complain about money, living wage, because they are being well paid. They cannot complain. So when people shout and they say, oh, 30,000, 60,000, there are some people working,
I don't understand.
They will say, what's wrong with these poor people? Why are you talking like this? I mean, some people didn't want to join this strike because it's like, these people are a nuisance.
Yes.
Oh, they won't allow me go to work. Do you understand? Because they are getting enough recompense for their labor. They are not laboring in vain. But the problem is with federal and state governments. Now, why should Mr. President be the one to speak on behalf of everybody? Let every governor be called back to his senses in their home state. Governor, you are not doing right by us. This state, Rivers State, should be able to pay more than Gombe, like I said. There are some states that are not economically viable. And some people still want to have more states. Those people, they say that they are owing pension for somebody will retire. And 6 years after he's dead. And it becomes a legacy for the family to process his pension, gratuity, everything. And they still won't get it for another 6 years. Even the children will start dying before they pay them. What kind of country is that?
Okay, like Joshua, I'm sorry. Like Joshua mentioned the other time, it's a constitutional matter, and until we amend the constitution, we still have to continue this way. But after the removal of subsidy, governors are getting more money. And, you know, at different fora, Mr. President had said that, okay, what are you guys doing with this money that you are collecting?
Sir, you see, there are certain things that we can't prove. We can only speculate.
Are they not getting more?
I agree with you totally. It's obvious they are getting more. All these issues about dollars and everything, there are speculations rife that, look, why is it that there's a particular point every month when the dollar rises against the naira? Why is it that it comes around when allocations are released? You know, it's loaded. I believe you understand what I'm saying. Now, these are the kind of things people have become callous. It's not just a constitutional issue. We're talking about humanity. We're talking about common sense, not common law. How can you say, because you have risen up to the pinnacle of your political career, and suddenly you forget that, look, all these people in positions of authority, there are still poor and wretched members of their family who are suffering like us. They are not taking care of every member of their family. Some family members can't even say it outside, I'm related to this person. But they are insulated from the truth because they are praise singers, the people who are close to them. Even Mr. President. I always say it, I say, if I ever have opportunity to stand before Mr. President, all I will tell him is the truth. The man is not deaf and dumb. He didn't get to that place by being deaf and dumb. He's a very smart person, smarter than most of us. But does he hear the truth anymore? He doesn't. Because all the people around him, they tell him that you are the best thing that has happened to humanity so far. Mr. President, if you see the way they are hailing you. So he's insulated. That is the problem. People cannot tell him the truth anymore. Because the people are afraid that, oh, what if I tell him to, I say, oh, yeah, I don't want you again. That is the problem. Is their basket where they get all the tomatoes, pepper that we cannot afford. Mr. President provides it for all these people around him, and they won't tell him the truth. And he won't come here again to come and discuss like I'm discussing.
Okay, let me just take the because we need to wrap up shortly.
Yeah.
Let me get the conversation. Some people say we shouldn't even be having this conversation about wage or this thing, that it is even inconsequential, because even if you have the money, if say at 150 minimum wage or 200, there's still what we call the hydra-headed monster of inflation that will just eat up everything. So you keep buying things that are very expensive. The money doesn't have value. But instead, the conversation should be about providing amenities that will make things, life easier. Strategic conversation as to housing, transport, food, health, those things. And of course, good roads, because good roads, with you have good car, bad road, you still go to your mechanic and still get, it's still the same vicious circle again. That if you can get all those things right, make it affordable, make it available to the people, then you can pay people 30,000 naira and they know that they can still get food, 10,000, they can get everything they need for the month. It is better. What do you think about that?
Well, I think a lot about that. Now, you see, I think another angle to what you have said, I agree with you, that instead of just giving money out to governors, everywhere by way of palliatives and all that, and not seeing the effect, on the population, I think, you see, we go back to the good old days. That time when, for instance, I went to school, my mother was a food hawker. I was the son of nobody. But I was in the same school with children of governors, ministers, because the schools, they were public schools, but they were good schools. This day, if the man who works for government knows that his child or children will attend good schools, well-funded, well-paid teachers, he knows he doesn't have to steal, he doesn't have to be corrupt. Now, most people have to send their children to private schools. It's expensive. You see, this kind of wage or the kind of money that is paid to people, it encourages corruption. Because you want to level up, you want to belong, and also the bosses are not there. Like they said, oh, well, palliative. When we remove subsidy, we are going to invest in it. Where are the bosses?
The CNG bosses.
Yes, it's over 1 year now. The bosses are not there. The ones that we had in Lagos, they are briquetting now. They are all packing up. So there are some infrastructural deficits that have always been there. Instead of just adding more money to what the governors take home every month, I believe that money that belongs to federal government that is meant to be a palliative, they should stop all this idea that people should submit their bank accounts, we'll just credit you. Something that is not susceptible to scrutiny. We can't know who is who. Why can't you use that money, provide infrastructure? Let people know that, oh, I don't need to steal money. I don't need too much money. If I can pay my rent, my children will go to schools, good schools. They will have buses. They will have everything.
Yes.
The pressure will be less.
Yes.
And then we won't be having this conversation.
Okay. I love the fact that you mentioned the CNG buses.
Yeah.
It's over a year now, and the policies are nowhere to be found. You know, we've seen a couple in Lagos State, maybe one or two, but it's not everywhere. Okay. And then Labour is demanding for another minimum wage now. Aside from increasing the wages, so what more should government put in place? Or like in the days of Jakonde, when we had good housing scheme, we don't have such again.
No.
So how would Labour survive, and yet people will look at the public service and tell them they are corrupt?
Yes, he said.
Man must survive.
Yeah, he talked about hydra-headed inflation. If they give them 250, 500, inflation will come.
Yes, we'll finish it.
So it's not basically about money alone. If we continue to measure wellness in terms of money, we are missing it. So when a lot of people are saying, oh, increase it and all that, once it is increased, there are people waiting to collect it from them. The pepper seller will collect, the bus driver will collect, and that money will be useless. You see, we were talking about Benin Republic, that their currency is better than ours now. You see, when I wanted to get married some years back, and we went to Benin to buy Ashwebi for people. And yes, I also bought car there. And I remember I put Naira in my pocket when I got there, especially when I wanted to buy my Honda car. Don't ask me whether it was legal or illegal. And we now say, they now said something. They called some millions of They called some funny amount in millions of their own currency, and I put the money down. They brought their own equivalent of my naira with wheelbarrow.
Wow.
And they said they gave me the car key that I could go with. And today, yes, I agree that our economy is subsidized. It is scandalous that today that CFA is now bigger than our naira. It is. I mean, and we produce more than Benin, but although the production line they are drying up, that's another problem. Employment is going down. You see young men on the streets begging or stealing, forcefully collecting from people in this Lagos. I'm not a bigot, but growing up, I never saw Yoruba people begging on the streets.
Unlike now.
There is a lot of that.
You just need to go to somewhere around that side.
I know.
They are everywhere.
And it's a shame. I was in Abeokuta, we were driving, and I saw men begging. And I said, what has brought us to this level? No, it's not about money, it's not about currency. It's about caring. It's about real plans. It's about putting things in place. What if we continue sharing money? Nigeria is not going to get out of it.
And for me, and that's the worry for me, because every time the conversation for the past 2 weeks has revolved around this is how much you want to get, this is how much I can't pay, but we have issues with transportation. Basic necessities of life. Like for you to buy fuel, you fuel your car. Averagely every week, I can't just think about how much. It depends on my movement. So sometimes, but you just have to go out as well.
But how are you surviving on 30,000?
He's not earning, he's earning more than that.
No, the challenge, and some people still don't understand that. Even if you say it's a 62,000 minimum wage, it doesn't go across board.
No,
it doesn't go across board.
Particular cadre more than the other.
Yes, that's
they don't know that.
It doesn't favor. So for me, I don't know why is Labour not even explaining that. Why can't Labour fight for good things? Like I was so disappointed. That's my own personal opinion, though, when they had to shut the national grid, and I said, what has that got to do with Labour going on strike?
There are levels to labor.
Sure.
You need to appreciate that. Your labor leader is in where now?
Switzerland. We talked about it yesterday.
So there are levels to labor.
Attending a conference now.
Some laborers are laborers.
Attending a
I
conference.
told you yesterday. It's the same thing.
There are laborers who are laboring in vain. There are laborers who are laboring in plenty. You know? So you cannot give what you don't have. We have seen labor leaders who have become governors and everything, who used to wear khaki and now what they wear is, you know. So things, you see, there are levels. And so you can only discuss at the level on which you are. When the labor leader gave us, that on so day, terminal day, if it doesn't happen, then before the terminal, they said, we can't go on strike for now. You then know that there are levels. They cannot give the Nigerian workers what they don't have to give, because right now they can't even explain away the fact that this thing we are talking about money. You see somebody selling groundnut talking about dollar till loss, okay, dollar has gone. What's the you know, that's the problem we have. So we have reduced everybody to discussions about currencies, dollar, naira, CFA. That's what we talk about, because our orientation is about money.
Okay.
No more values.
Labour had said
Real
that
values.
they are going to wait for Mr. President to say something as regards the proposed 62,000 naira. But I'm very certain they are not going to wait forever.
Labour?
Yeah.
Says who?
Labour will not wait forever.
Well,
that is one. Okay, I'm only insinuating that they might not wait.
They won't wait forever, but they will wait again. You see, it's like when you have a jalopy. He can follow. You push, you start, you stop. My first car, people call me Achakpe, you know, because all the parts. So I know you couldn't have used that kind of car. So I know the kind of labor we have now. It should be called Achakpe, and I say that from personal experience.
So are we contending with the issue of trust on the part of the
Of
Labour
course, who trusts anybody anymore? Nigerians don't trust their leaders. The leaders don't trust their followers. Labour does not trust their laborers. Nobody trusts anybody. The only person that appears to be trusted is God now. And those who head the religious organization, they are siding with the leadership, because the preaching now is, oh, you must pray for your leaders. Oh, you cannot be saying bad things about your country, and you expect
that's what the
things to
Bible.
happen.
That's what the Bible says.
That's what the Bible has. The Bible compiled by the white man to influence the slaves.
Yeah.
That's the Bible.
Do you buy this proposal suggested by some people that everybody should be on minimum wage? Whether you are a senator or you are a governor?
Totally. No, it's always been on the table that our legislators should be paid per hour for the work done. When you come, if you don't come, you don't get paid. But there's a blanket payment mechanism now. Whether you come or not,
They control their budget.
Well, so they control their budget. The judiciary does not control its budget. And that's why you see people going to the court, frivolous.
No, that's why they cried out. They are also getting very soon.
Politicians will get injunction. Did you hear of the latest one?
The former Rivers.
No, not the Rivers one. Let's leave that one first. The one in Kano now, where they said the former governor, you cannot, EFCC cannot arrest him, cannot detain him, cannot investigate him, and there's a Supreme Court precedent for that.
There's one for
Rivers.
There's one for Kogi. You see, I'm a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for 32, 33 years. And we call something precedent. We call it precedent, ratio precedent. When a court makes a pronouncement, we are supposed to follow it until it is changed by the highest court of the land or any court. No more precedents in Nigeria. You know, what they call rule of law means you are anybody. When we go before the court, the same law that was used 10, 20, 30 years ago, the same decision will apply to your case. But now, EFCC will go and pack Yahoo boys overnight in a hotel, raid them. EFCC, they said they even took the wig.
We go there. I gave them some smacking.
They will collect all those ones. But when a big man, the Kogi governor, what has happened? Have you been hearing anything again?
It's turned black from white.
You see, we are distracted. Next time you see the man dancing on an island, enjoying money. And they say there is rule of law. The reason why that is happening is, look at the Rivers decision. The judge gave injunction. Yesterday, he said, no, I don't have jurisdiction. There will be no sanction for the lawyer who brought a case to a court that had no jurisdiction. There will be no sanction for the judge who gave injunction. When he ought to know, the first day a case is brought before a judge, he ought to know that I don't have jurisdiction. Or you tell the person, address me. If the judge says, well, fair hearing, I have to give him time, then are you sure you are competent? Because the first day the man comes, as a competent judge, you ought to be on notice. Is there something wrong? Can you address me before I even grant another injunction? So there are.
But what we now say to that of Kano, the religion, the Emirate also.
If I start discussing that one now,
I don't want us to change the topic on the program.
Don't let's start today. Give me another.
So you quite agree that our elected leaders and of course public servants should be on the same page when it comes to wages.
Exactly. What are they doing that is different?
They are trying to serve the people, and if you don't,
are they being forced to serve?
Come on, sir.
If you came out. When they came, most of them have houses, they have cars, they have everything. There are countries that run that way. They don't even pay them. It's part-time. I mean, being a legislator is part-time. So when you come, they give you allowance, sitting allowance.
All these senators and House of our distinguished senators, I must put, and honorable members, do you see any of them saying, let's do this part-time?
That's the problem. They won't do it. But until the people of Nigeria begin to tell them that for instance, when we are having elections, you know, in America they say, down the ballot, there should be other issues for us to determine.
Yes.
Like for instance, Biafran people say they want to go. Put it as an issue for maybe people on that side to vote. Do you want to leave or stay? Then the issue of minimum wage. Do you agree that minimum wage should be this or that? Put it down the ballot. Let's begin to vote so that they will know where we stand. And when we vote, if majority of Nigerians say, look, the legislative duties should be part-time. If it's part of the election process and we vote And I'm sure most Nigerians will say it should be part-time. I am sure 95%, let's say 99%, because the 1% that are legislators, they will say no. But all of us will say it's part-time. Yes. And then you will see that a lot of people they would be disinterested in politics. Politics is a veritable tool for making cheap money. Some of them have never done any work in their lives other than politicking. That's why they can't go anywhere else.
Okay, now that Labour is saying that it's not going to accept anything short of 250,000 naira, do you see the federal government playing balls with Labour leaders as regards to 250,000 naira? or is it a tall dream?
Well, the answer that I want to give,
please give it.
The answer that I want to give is not the kind of answer you can give on TV.
You can modify the language.
Okay. Well, the way I see it is that, you see, both Labour and government, honestly speaking, I think they are playing on the intelligence. They are just playing on the intelligence of Nigerians, generally. We are going nowhere. Even if tripartite or quadruple or whatever agreement they reach ultimately, look at 33,000. They've not paid it. How many years ago did they agree on that?
About 15 states.
Well, and there's a clause that says, oh, the review should be like this. They've not implemented that in many states. Edo that has jumped from even like because there's election coming. We know that. So what I'm telling you is that all this rigmarole, president will address us, kilo lenu oro wo pinpin. What is so difficult about sharing Nigeria's money? Do you understand? It's not so difficult. It's not rocket science. If they are really look at national anthem. Like 1 week, bam, it was done. Look, the court case, they say federal government sues state government, independence of judiciary, self-accounting. Some people were arguing, and I said, why should they go? The man, the Attorney General of the Federation, is one of the most intelligent lawyers in this country. And he knows that President Buhari made an executive order stating exactly the same thing. That local government money must go straight to local government. This one was there. And then suddenly, now, the governor said, no, he had no power to do that. And incidentally, Buhari was APC. Tinubu is APC. How can you now say your man who did it when you had majority in the two houses did something and you suddenly realize that he had no power to do that? And then we are going back to court. All the attorney generals of all the states, they will be traveling there. Staying in hotels,
wasting money
with retinue of people, and then by the time they come back, the bill for each state will be like 150 million, 250 million. They are sharing that,
and these are states that cannot pay,
and they can't pay salary 62,000 to real long. What are we talking about? They are playing on our intelligence. That's the way I see it. You know, I think Nigerians must grow up. We must grow out of this illusion that there are some people out there who are fighting for them. You know, a time must come when we must, do something for ourselves.
When is that time? And when is it going to be?
You want to force me to say what I should not say on TV. I say we must do something.
Because the time for me should have been during elections. But then, they'll give us rice, they'll give us money, and then...
No, they didn't give you. People like you don't collect rice. I won't collect rice. I won't collect money. I will vote my conscience. The people they give, when it's election time again, they will do the needful. And the people will still vote the way they've always been voting. And then at times, even if you vote the way your conscience says you vote, the magic will happen.
Oh, what's the magic?
You know, I'm a lawyer, so there are certain things I cannot say. Don't worry. Another time. But we have to realize that nothing will come out of it. Even after they agree, then they will take it to court, and the court case will take 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years before they finish it. Until we can engage them directly. The middlemen that we have appointed to speak on our behalf, they are not speaking on our behalf. They are speaking for themselves and the people around them. And that has to happen.
Okay. I want to say thank you very much, Mr. John Dario Oloyede, lawyer, public affairs analyst, for joining us this morning. I noticed that you said middlemen. We didn't find a a common ground for this especially when this impasse is going to finish,
Yeah.
and when we think the federal government will answer and Labour will go back to work. Anyway.
They will keep talking. We'll keep talking.
Okay, talk is it then.
We'll talk.
Thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully we can have you back when all this is settled.
Anytime.
Okay.
We must keep talking too.
Thank you very
Just
much.
like us.
Yes. Well, the conversation has been about the minimum wage, federal government versus the organized labor. We'll take a very short break. The conversation continues. Don't go anywhere.